Hi, and welcome to Girls' Lunch, your mealtime companion where we talk about food, gender, sexuality, and where everyone is welcome.
I'm Nicole Hilton.
I'm Julia Andreas.
And Julia, it's no surprise like what we're talking about today. People can read, they've seen the title. We're talking about Hershey's chocolate. I want to say this is not a sponsored episode, but if the Hershey Company wants to give us some passes to Hershey Park or send some free chocolate to my house, I'm not going to say no. What is your relationship with the Hershey brand? You want to talk about the chocolate, the park, the town, any of it? How you feel about them?
I mean, like, growing up, Hershey, of course, very ubiquitous with childhood. It was like the chocolate bar. You could get it in every vending machine. There were like multiple flavors. I specifically remember the very bad like cookies and cream chocolate bar flavor.
Yeah.
That I was once so hungry at a summer camp, and it was like the only thing I could buy with like my $1.02.
You must have like immediately thrown up though.
Yeah, I like had a terrible tummy ache.
Oh.
I guess like my relationship with Hershey is maybe a little more complicated as someone who is like a lover of chocolate with a tummy of anti-milkies. I mean, I did eat them as a kid, don't get me wrong. And did I suffer? Yes. Did I continuously eat them anyway? Yeah. But I think like the first thing I'd think about would really be the theme park. I have, you know me. You know I'm a thrill seeker. I love a theme park. Hershey's is very fun. It's probably like one of my favorites. And growing up, I would actually go to Hershey quite a bit, whether that was like school field trips or birthdays, or like in college when I would go with some of our mutual friends to just like ride the coasters endlessly. And so, I don't know, fond memories of the park in general. Those are the feelings and thoughts I have when I think about the Hershey brand.
Yes. I'll say for the people at home that this is going to be a two-parter, which I tried not to do, but then I realized that it made more sense to just do a two-parter. So today, part one, we're mostly going to be focusing on Milton Hershey, the man, and milk chocolate. And then sort of the Hershey Company we'll talk about in part two. This, I think, is a really great sort of like classic girls' lunch episode in the sense that I started out researching this thinking like, oh, it would be neat to know the history of like Hershey, this great chocolate company. And then learned that like, as is often the case, there were some very important women behind Milton Hershey who led to his great success.
Great success.
So
classic girls lunch episode. You gotta get
the Borat in there.
You gotta get the women who have been overlooked but really contributed to something that's famous and very popular now in there. It's got everything.
This episode in particular is inspired by my most recent visit to Hershey, Pennsylvania, where I, perhaps in a very small minority of people, went to Hershey, the town, intentionally and did not go to Hershey Park. I went to the Hershey Museum, and I went to my favorite American Hockey League team, the Hershey Bears, and saw a hockey game, which was great. When I was telling people, like, yeah, I'm going to Hershey this weekend, they're like, oh, for the park? And I'm like, no, because I'm a weirdo, I guess. Okay, so today, let's get into Milton Hershey, the man.
The legend.
Yes. Really, he does become sort of a legend, which we'll talk about. Milton Hershey was not always a chocolate man, but he was for most of his adult life and his teenage years a candy man.
The candy man?
Yes, and he can. Candy man. So Milton Hershey, have we said he's the founder of the Hershey Company? He invents milk chocolate.
I hope people assumed that.
Yeah, I don't know. Milton was born in 1857 in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, to his mother, Fanny Snavely.
That's a name.
And his father, Henry Hershey. So I said Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Almost all of our story is going to take place in this region of Pennsylvania, which is often referred to as Pennsylvania Dutch country. So like sort of central, south central PA. So Milton's mother was a staunch Mennonite, which, if you don't know, is like similar to Amish culture, right? Of like you dress very plainly, embrace a hard work ethic, reject a lot of the modern conveniences type things. We will talk more about Fanny Hershey in the second half of the episode, but I guess it's important to say that that's sort of the culture that this is all happening in, is like Mennonite, Pennsylvania Dutch vibes. Henry Hershey, Milton's dad, is very much a dreamer. He's a big ideas man. He has lots of ideas, lots of big ideas. And as a result, the Hershey family moved several times during Milton's childhood in pursuit of these dreams. There was I think he had like a fish farm, like a fish pond. He had designed some kind of perpetual motion machine, a flying machine. Very much like old-timey, like, this is going to be the next biggest thing.
If this man was around today, he would definitely have developed his own sort of like cryptocurrency. A failed cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Hershey coin. As a result of all these big ideas, they moved several times. And as maybe you might have guessed, because Milton Hershey is the famous one, not Henry Hershey, none of these ideas really came to fruition. And in fact, they caused the family a lot of like financial strain, right? Mm-hmm. They're not really bringing in steady income. Milton's parents never actually get divorced because that's very much like taboo, obviously, but they do separate. Fanny eventually is like, I'm done with you, get lost, get out of here. And Henry has many other wild and crazy schemes that he'd like to pursue, so he does that. And he sort of comes in and out of the picture. He did also have a younger sister named Serena, who unfortunately died of scarlet fever in 1867, just before her 5th birthday. Aww. When Milton was 9. And it's said that he was very close with her. He really adored her, so that was obviously very hard on him. After this point, Milton's mother, her husband's very unreliable. Her daughter's passed away. She focuses basically all of her energy on her son. She's like, this is kind of all I have left. By age 12, Milton drops out of school to go to work. He's like, I figured out school. I know enough school. That's enough school. His first apprenticeship is at a newspaper office, but he just really hates it. So he basically gets himself fired. There is some incident where he like drops a hat into the newspaper press.
Hell yeah.
It often is said, like, I don't know, is it an accident or was it like an accident? At age 14, he got a different apprenticeship, this time at Royer's Ice Cream Parlor and Garden in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where he learned how to make confections, candies, and ice cream. But he did not, at this time, learn how to make chocolate, other than maybe like hot cocoa drink. At this point, he is making things like taffy, lemon drops, rock candy, those types of treats.
Hell yeah. If I was a dude in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, this would be the job for me.
Honestly, it's a vibe, this like turn of the century candy shop. Ooh. With sweets and treats,
I love it. I love the aesthetic. I love the making of candies and things. I'd be happy. It's a little candy man.
Indeed. And Milton was quite happy as a little candy man. So the history of chocolate is like massive. We're not going to be able to get into all of that today. We'll talk about it a bit. But suffice to say, at this point in history, the 1870s, the reason Milton was not making chocolate at Royer's Ice Cream Parlor is because chocolate bars are not really widely produced or widely affordable because they're mostly like entirely cocoa, right? Which is very expensive.
Very bitter also.
Yes. The only person who's really figured out how to add milk to chocolate is Nestle, who was a real guy. Henry Nestle, I think.
Probably.
Mr. Nestle.
Mr. Nestle.
He's a Swiss man. It's not his story, so we're not too interested. But
get out of here, Nestle.
He's not the chocolate man we're talking about today. He is really the only one who sort of figured out, even in a marginal way, how to add milk to chocolate. And he had only figured out like milk powder, not like fresh milk. Julia, you have expertise in chocolate and chocolate making.
Yes.
Can you explain why it is so hard to make milk chocolate?
I will do my best. Moisture and water content is essentially your enemy when you are making a chocolate bar, because a wet, that's not the right word, but like a wet chocolate is not going to set. So when you create a chocolate bar, you need to temper. You probably heard of this phrase, tempering chocolate. And that is when you set up these fat and sugar crystals that exist in cacao butter and cocoa itself to have it so that it sets and hardens and is hard at room temperature. With something like milk, if you introduce that into the mixture, just like a cup of milk, your chocolate's probably not going to set. It will not be shelf stable in any form because milk will spoil really fast. And you're going to get not a tempered chocolate, you're just going to have essentially like a ganache. So like if you add just milk to chocolate, you're going to get like a ganache. It's not going to be a hard set chocolate bar like we'd think of. Milk does make chocolate more tasty, but it also makes it way more temperamental.
Yes. Temperamental.
Ha 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 ha.
You can tell me if this is an oversimplification, but my sense from what I read was that milk is mostly water and chocolate has a lot of like fat and oil, and obviously oil and water do not mix, so you need to try to like get rid of that water somehow.
Yeah. I mean, like most chocolate bars today, if they are a milk chocolate, it usually is milk powder. That's just the easiest way to make a chocolate bar.
Okay, so that is where we're at in history in the 1870s. It's also important to note that at this point in history, if you want candy or ice cream, you kind of need to go to a confectioner, right? Not only because of the lovely aesthetic and crystal that Julia was talking about and all the fancy packaging and whatnot, but candy is not really mass produced or like individually wrapped like it is today, right? Candy is pretty laborious. It makes more sense to go somewhere where you have like taffy, right? You have someone who's like pulling it and making a bunch of it. And candy also doesn't stay fresh for as long, especially if you have any kind of milk in it. Today, like Julia was saying, you can get a Hershey bar at a gas station, a grocery store, vending machine, anywhere. But at this point in time, you need to go to a confectionery. If you think of our grocery stores episode, you have to go to 5 or 6 stores, not just one. At the ice cream shop where Milton is apprenticing, he's doing pretty well. In 1876, he has sort of graduated. He's learned as much as he can from Mr. Royer. At age 19, he opens his own confectionery in Philadelphia, and his mother's family finances him, and his mother and his Aunt Mattie come to help him run the shop.
Cute.
We will talk more about Aunt Mattie later in the episode.
Oh?
We will. Okay, so Milton is running his own confectionery shop in Philadelphia. His mom and his aunt are there helping him package and wrap things. His aunt actually like picked out the space where she was like, I think this will be a good location, and helped him finance it, give him startup money, all that type of stuff. So just as Milton is like starting to turn a profit, things are going all right, his dad shows up and he is like, I have a great new invention for you to invest in, my son. These display boxes for candies. And also, I think we should make these cough drops and say that they're like Hershey and Son brand cough drops.
Oh, God.
His dad is like, this is a great new invention. We should, in addition to like all the candies that we're selling to individuals, we should also be doing like wholesale and selling to other retailers, and we can sell them these boxes for them to like display the candies in, and it'll make us like so much money. It'll be a great idea. Milton's mother and his aunt are like, I don't know about this. I don't know about it. Doesn't seem great. But Milton is like, like it's his dad. He's like, he's got big ideas, great ideas. Let's do it. And so they invest in like making these display boxes and the cough drops, and they do okay, but eventually it is not profitable enough, and it sort of drags the rest of the business down.
Oh, no.
So much so that Milton's dad is like, I'm broke. I can't do this anymore. I would like to actually leave and go silver mining in Colorado. Son, would you please buy out my stake in this business? And Milton's like, okay. And so he buys out his dad's like share of the business, and his dad dips to go silver mining in Colorado. And then Milton is sort of left to pick up the pieces. At this point, you know, his parents really don't get along, and all of the arguing basically gives him like a mental breakdown, more or less, which is, can I say, very relatable.
No.
He suffers this like health episode where he's like out for almost a month, I think, with like breathing problems, and just like he's laid up, he can't work. So it's on his mom and his aunt mostly to keep the candy shop running. Some doctors were even like, I don't know if he's gonna make it, but he does turn around.
Did he just have like such a massive panic episode that it just like...
It does kind of sound that way. And like I said, very relatable. Haven't we all been there?
Haven't we all? Side note, I love that like you could have like a mincy bee and doctors would be like, I don't know, they might die.
Yeah.
We don't know. He could live. He could just perish. Who's to say?
Yeah. It's also like the 1880s, so knowing exactly like what it was he had, who freaking knows? And so, like I said, so he does, obviously, for this story, recover. He does not die at this point. As they say in The Princess Bride, she doesn't die at this point. I just need you to know. You seem like you might be very worried. But even though Milton does physically recover, he cannot kind of get back, as we would say in business, like get back in the black, right? He's in too much debt, and he eventually has to close the Philadelphia confectionery in 1882 after borrowing a lot of money from his aunt and other relatives. So after this adventure in Philadelphia, Milton is like, well, my dad's in Denver trying to be a silver miner. I guess I'll just go see what that's about. So he decides to go west to Denver for a couple of months. Also, potentially like for his health, right? That whole like the clear mountain air for your lungs.
I wonder, to conduct another episode, if he, on his trip from Philadelphia to Denver, he must have taken trains. And if he took trains, he must have stopped at those trains, like, restaurants.
Did he? He might have. So while he's out in Denver, Milton does not want to be a silver miner. He decides to get a job at what he knows best, a candy shop, making caramels.
Ooh.
This candy shop that he works at is different from a lot of others at the time, which this is a fun thing that I didn't know. Candy makers were often using paraffin wax to make caramel, like give it that chewy texture, which, Julia's making a yucky face. I would agree. Gross. But this confectioner that Milton works for is actually using fresh milk instead of wax, which, probably tastes better, probably pretty good.
I would assume.
After a couple months goes by, Milton is physically feeling better. He is like, I think I'm kind of done being out here, out west. I'm going to head back east. And he also feels like he's learned about as much as he can from this candy shop, and he wants to try kind of having his own business. So he decides to head back east, this time to New York City.
New York City.
Again, with startup money from his aunt. He does okay in New York. He's in this area of the city where I think it's called Fashion Avenue. Fashion Avenue. That's not literally the name of the street, but there's a bunch of like high-end dressmakers and clothing retailers and whatever. So he's able to sell to them directly, sell them candy, and then he gets some wholesale deals with other retailers of like, hey, stock my candy in your shop. So again, his mother and his aunt come in to help him package and wrap the candies. They're his sort of like free labor source.
I don't know. His mom and his aunt are like, yeah, we'll do this again.
What could go wrong? Like I said, he's doing pretty well, but he, as the saying would go, he gets in over his skis a little bit, and like decides to expand sort of too much too quickly. He like rents out a bigger space and then realizes that he's not actually able to like make enough to pay for it.
Oh no.
And so he can't pay his bills. And so after about 2 or 3 years in New York, he again has to close his business, take the L, and go back home to Pennsylvania.
This is so funny because, like, it's Hershey. You know where he ends up. So, like, each time you're like, and then he starts a new candy place. I'm like, oh, is this the one?
Yeah.
No. Oh, no, this one didn't work either. Okay. Oh, is this the one? No.
Yeah. It is funny also that, like, or there's often a critique I hear about, like, people failing upward, where it's like they continue to fuck up, but somehow they keep getting promoted. I don't know if that's Milton Hershey exactly, but
he's got some of that Henry Hershey in him. He just keeps trying.
He does. He really does. But he has his mother's, like, hard work ethic as well to try to see things through. So we are now in 1886. He decides once more, he's like, all I know is how to be a candy man, so I'm going to try again to be a candy man. This time he sets up shop much closer to home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And his plan is to bring Denver-style caramels, a.k.a. caramels made with milk, not with wax, as we talked about, to the East Coast. Because people are not familiar with them out here. I guess they just love wax caramel. I don't know.
Love that wax flavor.
That good old wax flavor.
That good old waxy flavor.
And he has an advantage putting his business in this area as well because there's a lot of dairy farms, right? So he can get the local fresh milk very easily and, you know, cheaper than if he had to ship it in from somewhere. He goes to his extended family and they're like, no frickin' way, dude. Like, you already owe me so much from your previous ventures. And at first his aunt is like, I don't know. But he eventually sort of convinces her, and she actually puts her house up as collateral on a loan for him to be able to. So, like, he needs to buy equipment to get started, right? And his aunt, like, puts up a house that she owns as, like, collateral against the loan. In this podcast, we love and respect and would die for Aunt Maddie.
Yeah, girl.
So he is doing pretty well. Obviously, people like having milk caramels, not wax caramels, I guess.
I can only imagine that they taste much better.
So caramel business is doing pretty well, but he is in this sort of, you know, like, modest-sized town in Pennsylvania, right? There's only so many people who are only going to buy caramel so often, right? So he needs to be able to distribute more widely. And so finally, for perhaps the first time in this story, he does get a little bit of luck. Up to this point, he's just been, like, striking out. As you said, Julia, he's failed several businesses by this point. But in 1887, a British importer happens to be passing through Lancaster. He stops at Milton's candy shop, and he's like, oh, this caramel's really good. I would like to buy some for distribution, like, abroad in England.
Oh.
And so he's like, so Milton's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, how much do you need? And the guy's like, oh, like a lot. Because international distribution, right? You've got to ramp up production, like, way, way up. So Milton is like, absolutely, sure, no problem at all. Would love to do that for you. And then has to run to the bank and be like, I have a great opportunity, but I need more money to be able to hire more people to be able to actually do this.
The bank's like, sure, buddy.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's kind of what happens, right? Is he goes to the bank. Well, he's able to take out more money, and then it comes time to, like, pay the loan, and he's like, I don't have it yet, but I will very soon because I'm about to fulfill this, like, giant order. And so he, like, shows the banker at the Lancaster National Bank. He, like, takes him to his factory where he's like, here's my mom and aunt. They're wrapping the candy. Like, we are doing what we can, but I just need a little bit more time to, like, fulfill the order. And the guy at the bank, this nice man, is, like, so convinced. He's like, I mean, how can I argue with that? He's got, like, 2 little old ladies here, you know, making caramel. So the banker puts his own name on the note, which is, like, against policy, and Milton gets an extension on his loan. He's able to fulfill the order. He gets the money from the British importer. They start importing to Britain / exporting from the US. And then from there, that's sort of his like big break. And from there, he's able to expand and distribute to other regions and things. But it's sort of finally the like, what is it? Not the headwind, the tailwinds? Is that right?
I don't know. The winds.
The winds. It's the winds of change that really leads to the Lancaster Caramel Company's success. From there, they're able to like expand, and Milton becomes very wealthy. They do very well. So wealthy that he is able to start hiring more workers than just like his mom and his aunt. So they, set up a bigger factory. They hire more employees, including William Murray, a cunning salesman who also helps the Lancaster Caramel Company expand its business. You may remember.
He sounds familiar.
He sounds familiar because he is our friend from the M&M's episode.
Oh, dang.
He is half of the M in M&M.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so he was the guy that was the Hershey president. Obviously, we're not Hershey Company yet, but he eventually becomes the president of the Hershey Company, sort of does all of the day-to-day operations. He's Milton's right-hand man, best friend. They have dinner together every night and smoke cigars together, and they're best pals. William Murray is responsible for a lot of the Hershey Company's success. I just wanted to throw him in there. Callback.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that callback. Because I was like, why does he sound so familiar? So familiar.
Yep.
So that's why.
So you're probably, dear listener, thinking at this point, Nicole, we have talked so much about so many things, and we've barely talked about chocolate. When are we going to talk about the chocolate?
You know me. I've got to have that chocolate.
Now we are going to talk about the chocolate.
Yeah!
In 1893, a little event happens called the Columbian Exhibition, or the World's Fair in Chicago.
Of course, baby!
Have you heard of her? We know her.
I think she appears in every episode.
I don't know if it's every episode, but I do have written down, that this could be a drinking game at this point of, take a drink every time we mention a World's Fair.
Dude, I was gonna be a bingo card. Just have, a girls' lunch bingo card. Did we mention the World's Fair in Chicago?
Honestly, you really could, if you were playing girls' lunch bingo, you'd probably have a blackout on your card for this one of, did we talk about some women who were overlooked yet integral to a major part of American food history? Yes. Did we talk about a World's Fair? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In 1893, like I said, the World's Fair is happening in Chicago. Milton Hershey had opened a branch of the Lancaster Caramel Company in Chicago. And so he's in town checking on his caramel business. And he's like, oh, let me check out this little thing called the World's Fair. That sounds fun. So he pops over there and he finds a booth where a German operator named J.M. Lehman has set up a massive chocolate display, which is what most people are there for. But Milton Hershey is very interested in the chocolate making equipment. Mm-hmm. So much so that he, in all of his caramel money, is like, yes, I would like to buy your equipment. And then he's like, Mr. Lehman, I guess, is like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, I want all of it. Milton's like, I want to buy your whole rig. Everything here.
I'll just take the whole lot, thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the whole thing. And he paid $20,000 for it, which, using some rough inflation calculators on the internet, tells me is about $600,000 in today's money. Some serious coin. At the time, there's only about 3 setups like this equipment in the world. So It is a significant investment. I mean, it's pretty impressive to watch. I did get to see it at the Hershey Story Museum.
Did they have the original equipment?
I don't think it's the original equipment.
Oh, it might have. Damn.
It might have been a replica. At the very least, they have a display where they sort of show you this is how chocolate is made, and they show you sort of every step. Julia, if you want to tell anybody at home about how the chocolate is made.
I mean, it makes sense to me that there are only 3 sort of setups for all this chocolate equipment, because it takes a lot of machinery to make chocolate. I worked in a chocolate factory for 2-3 years, and where my heart is so fond of the very nostalgic sort of aesthetic of the confectioner. An actual chocolate factory is very much not that cute in Twee. It is it is like you are dealing with extreme heavy machinery. You've got the machine that sorts the cacao beans. I don't remember what it was called. It sorts the cacao beans into like different sizes. You have the machine that crushes the cacao beans and deshells them. You have the roaster that roasts the beans, and that is like a giant drum that constantly turns the beans as they're being roasted so they don't burn. You have the grinder, which is just like a giant food processor that grinds up your cacao beans after they're shelled, and that's where you would add in like your milk or your extra cacao butter or whatever sort of like things that you put into your chocolate recipe. You have the conch machine and the roller, so like after you make your chocolate paste, you have to put it in like this roller so it essentially squishes the particles down so finely that they're like beyond powder. And then that goes into the conch where the magic of chocolate happens, and this chocolate is like aerated and the flavor develops, and it's where you really get like what chocolate actually is. And then the conch chocolate has to be tempered, and so you have like the tempering machine. And then after chocolate is tempered, it has to be cooled, so you have like the cooling machine. It's like so much giant hardware. It's really insane.
It's a very industrial process.
It's so industrial, yeah. It is not cute, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I got to see like I think like replica equipment where they have like a conching machine, and it's called that, for those that don't know. It's called a conch because it's sort of this like spirally looking giant stone thing that looks like a conch shell that just like rolls back and forth forever, making the chocolate, like breaking it down like Julia says. So I got to see like that kind of in action. So anyway, so it's not surprising to me that Milton Hershey paid like $600,000 for this.
Yeah. It would probably cost like $2 million to get that equipment today.
Yeah. But he's very interested in it, right? Like the whole process of it and things. Supposedly, Milton had... To me, this seems very apocryphal. I'm like, this is one of those things that like is often repeated in sources and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how much I feel like he really said this, but sure. Milton supposedly told a cousin at the time that like, I think caramels are a fad, and I think chocolate is going to be the next big thing. It's like... I mean, maybe.
That seems convenient.
But it does seem very convenient, right? I mean, Milton Hershey probably did have some sense that, like, I mean, you know, chocolate's good.
It's good, baby.
Because of his, like, you know, all of his caramel money, has been doing some traveling, and he has seen how popular chocolate is in Europe. At this point in history, which is, we're talking like 1890s, chocolate is sort of like a craze in Europe. We now have, like, a lot of the major chocolatiers like Lindt, Nestle, Cadbury, and Roundtree, they're all having great success. Those are probably names that you know because they are still in business today, because chocolate is great, and we've now figured out like how to kind of manufacture it at a large scale. But that's not really being done yet in the U.S. It is in a couple of places, but Milton decides like that he wants to try to make his own chocolate and do that. And he also, like, it's worth mentioning, as you said, Julia, he has kind of his father's spirit. He's like an experimenter. He's like a tinkerer. And so he's like, I figured out caramels. The caramel factory is like running, you know, he's got William Murray. It like runs itself at this point. So he kind of is like looking for a new project. So he's like, I want to try to be a chocolate maker. And he also, it would be a way to like diversify the business, right? So that way you're not just selling caramels, you also have chocolate too. So Milton like cordons off a section of the caramel factory for his like little chocolate project, which I think is very funny.
No, don't go over there. That's Milton's chocolate corner.
It really is. It really is. So he, you know, is kind of messing around and figuring that out and figuring out how it all works when he is approached by a buyer for the Lancaster Caramel Company. And he, after much negotiation, does indeed sell it in 1900 for $1 million in cash, which, again, using inflation calculators on the internet, is roughly $38.6 million today.
Wowzers.
And it's cash, right? It's not like in investments or bonds or whatever stock. So he just like is a millionaire, straight up. But as part of this deal to sell the Lancaster Caramel Company, Milton gets to keep the chocolate business. Because he's like, that's my, as you said, this is Milton's chocolate corner. This is his special little project. So he's like, I want to keep all my chocolate stuff that I just bought. So the guy who buys the caramel company is like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Chocolate ain't gonna be nothing. It ain't gonna be big.
Exactly.
Keep your little chocolate corner.
Keep your silly little chocolate business, whatever. Doesn't bother me. So like I said, Milton is like an experimenter, kind of like his dad, right? He likes to tinker around. And that's a good thing because he does not know how to make milk chocolate. No one at this point has really figured out how to use fresh milk to make milk chocolate, as we said earlier. But Milton is like, I'm a smart, successful candy man. I can figure it out. And he's also flush with cash from his $1 million deal. So he sort of has the resources and time to fuck around to figure out how to make milk chocolate. He assembles a team, an elite squad, that is not known as the Special Victims Unit. I don't know if they have a name, but he gathers together a team, and they work round the clock to try to figure out how to make milk chocolate using fresh milk. He sets up a kind of lab at the Hershey family farm where there are lots of cows nearby. They get their own cows, and they also try experimenting with, like, what they feed the cows. What types of cows, right? Are they Jersey cows?
If it's a brown cow, do they just get chocolate milk?
Exactly.
Like, important science happening here.
These are the questions they were asking. He and his crew work like 16-hour days, milking cows, making batch after batch, trying to figure out how to make milk chocolate. And it's all conducted behind closed doors. They actually have guards that are like walking around and patrolling to try to keep people away.
It's very Wonka-esque.
It is, yeah. And you might be wondering, like, well, Nicole, this is just like some, millionaire's silly little pet project, right? Like, why is he working everybody so hard to figure out how to make milk chocolate? Why does he care? He's flush with cash. He can do whatever he wants. Milton really needs to figure out how to make milk chocolate because he thinks it'll sell well. And that is important because at this point, he has decided to build an entire town.
Of course. The only logical next step.
The next logical step, it goes candy, failure, candy, failure, candy, failure, caramel, success, chocolate, small town, question mark, profit. So Milton Hershey has decided that, like, he doesn't want this to just be like his own little silly chocolate project anymore, right? He needs a bigger factory. He wants to expand the chocolate business. And he is like, well, if I'm going to have a huge factory with lots of people working there, they need somewhere to live. Now, at this point in history, the phenomenon of factory towns. So, Julia, explain for people at home, like, what is a, like, I guess, traditional factory town?
Yeah, so you have, let's just say, an Amazon warehouse.
Let's just say, picking a random company, no reason.
For no reason. And you plop that Amazon warehouse, because you need a lot of space, in like this pretty empty area, but you need people to work there, and they don't want to have to commute very far to get to this factory, this Amazon warehouse. That's not good for profit. So you sort of like build the town around this factory. So you have like houses for the factory workers to live in. You have the necessities like stores and everything else, so that like you have essentially like a little bubble of economy around this town, and most of the jobs are people working at this factory, which is all well and good unless the factory does bad.
Right. And something else that often happens with these factory towns, they also own the land, they own the homes, they own the stores. So there's no like type of competition, or if Amazon owns your house, they can kick you out and you have nothing. Like,
Yeah.
if you're renting from them, you're fully at their mercy. Also, they can decide sort of how much to pay you, and because there's nowhere else to work, it's entirely up to them. You sort of live or die by the company, right? Because they control all aspects of your life to some degree. Milton Hershey is progressive and has seen, like, how these factory towns often go, and so he tries really hard to make a community that is not like that. He tries very hard to build a, like, real community that does benefit workers. He buys hundreds of acres of farmland in Dairy Church, which now becomes Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is actually very close to where he was born. And he employs an architect and an entire crew to design and build the new factory and the town to go with it. At the risk of sounding like this is corporate propaganda or like capitalism apology, whatever, there are some pretty distinct ways that Hershey, Pennsylvania is different than other factory towns. A really big one, as I was sort of alluding to, is Hershey encourages workers to own their own homes. So rather than, like, Hershey owns the property and you pay them, and it's sort of like a giant cycle because, like, they're paying you to work there, but then you pay them to live there, and so you never really make any money. Milton Hershey actually really encourages people to, like, buy their own homes. Milton also did not want homes to look cookie cutter. He actually fired the guy that was in charge of building employee homes after he saw, so, like, they built the first 2 streets of homes in Hershey, and they all, like, you know, Main Street all looks the same, Chestnut Street all looks the same, all the houses look exactly the same. And Milton Hershey gets really upset by this and says, "No, you're fired." He says, reportedly, quote, "That's the way the slave dealers used to do it. We don't want that here."
Oh, damn. Okay.
And has all the houses torn down. And he's like, "Start over, do it again. We're not doing that here." Like Julia was saying, factory towns obviously have things like stores and places for people to buy stuff. Milton Hershey put in a lot of sort of recreation and leisure opportunities for his employees, like gardens, parks, recreation centers, to make sure that, like, people really had time off. And he also, because this is the middle of, like, farmland, put in major utilities like electricity and railways or trolley lines that, you know, they might not have otherwise had if they were just living in farm country. To the point where, like, you know, when he was picking out, like, where did he want to build his factory, all of his architects were like, "Well, there's no electricity, there's no rail lines here." And he's like, "Okay, I'll build a rail line," you know?
So I'll just build it.
And what, like, it's hard.
Hershey does seem to be giving some very strong Elle Woods energy, and
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
One of those centers for recreation includes the formerly discussed Hershey Park.
Wow.
Wow. Which was, at its inception, because we didn't really have theme parks at that time, more like a park, right? With, like, trees and stuff.
Trees and stuff.
You know, trees and stuff like you see at a park. And things like a carousel, you know, some, like, little, what we might consider, like, kiddie rides, you know, swings, things like that. And then also important to Hershey is education. It's important to him that not only is there, like, a school for all of the factory workers' children to go to, but specifically he wants to establish a school for underprivileged orphan boys. So if we think back to, like, you know, his own childhood, right? They had financial struggles and his childhood was perhaps not ideal. Maybe it's not so surprising that he wanted to, I guess, give back in the sense of, like, hey, I had it rough as a boy and I want to make sure that other boys have it so that they get off to a good start. Milton Hershey and his wife Kitty take some of the land that they've bought to build the town and dedicate it to the Hershey Industrial School, which is now called the Milton Hershey School. Students there receive free education, room, board, meals, all that stuff, and they learn a trade that prepares them for later in life. They learn some kind of, like, practical skills that they'll have to then be able to go and get a job. And while they're there, they're sort of expected to help out with farm chores because at this point, it's sort of just like boys living at a farmhouse. So they still have to, like, go milk cows and then they go to school and then they come home and shovel hay or whatever.
They had a lot of cows to milk. Hershey had to crack the code of milk chocolate.
Exactly. We'll talk more about Milton Hershey School in part 2, but that's like something that is very important to Milton as he's designing his whole little utopia. Eventually, as we know, being in the future, Milton figures out how to make milk chocolate. The process actually sours the milk just a little bit, which gives Hershey's chocolate this like signature, what some people would say, a little bit of sour taste. And something that I discovered when I was researching that I think is really funny is that Europeans hate milk chocolate and they think it tastes bad.
Yeah.
Julia, could you please read this? I haven't had a lot of quotes for you to read yet, but this one here is quite good, I think. This is from a book called The Emperors of Chocolate.
The American public's love for Hershey's chocolate baffles European connoisseurs, who say Hershey's chocolate is offensive, if not downright inedible. Known in the industry as barnyard or cheesy chocolate, Hershey's unique fermented flavor has never sold in Europe, despite attempts by the company to market there. Milton Hershey completely ruined the American palate with his sour, gritty chocolate, says Hans Schuh, a Swiss national who is now president of the Cocoa Merchants Association. Who in their right mind would set out to produce such a sour chocolate? There is no way Mr. Hershey did this on purpose. It had to be a mistake.
I just think it's really funny that Europeans are like, this is gross.
I think it's funny, though, because, like, I went to Italy and I studied abroad there in Perugia, which is home to, like, Italy's version of Hershey, essentially, Perugina, and they use milk in their chocolate. Like, most European chocolates do have milk in them in some sort of form. It's not like all their chocolate is dark.
Right.
Like, American chocolate, Hershey's milk chocolate, it's like 30% or like 40%. It's like really a lot of it is just like milk and sugar and cacao butter.
Right.
And
it's
not
very
as
milky.
much cocoa. It's very, very milky. Whereas like a lighter like milk-ish chocolate that you would get in Europe would be like 75% or like 60%. It is different, but I do want to say like they do use milk in European chocolates. I know, because sometimes I can't eat them and it makes me upset.
Yeah. So now we finally have the birth of an American icon, the Hershey bar. And now that we have finally gotten to the thing that you have all been waiting for, let's end the episode. So we're going to pause here, sort of since we're roughly at turn of the century, and we're going to pick back up at World War I in the next episode. And in the second half, we will discuss all of the women that made Hershey what it is today. But before we do that, Julia, would you please deliver the food fact of the day?
Of course, I'm happy to.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Woo!
Woo! Your favorite game show just got renewed for a third season.
Ooh.
That's right. It's time to play. Is it nail polish or a 1920s ice cream sundae?
Yay!
Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum,
This-
bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da. It's back, baby.
It's back. Everything old is new again.
It's been a while since we've had our inaugural game show on the podcast, so I thought I would bring it back for fun, and I also thought it would be an appropriate topic to go with Hershey's and chocolate and ice cream. For those who need a refresher on like why 1920s ice cream sundae, you know, ice cream was definitely around prior to the 1920s, as Nicole said. Like, Hershey worked at an ice cream place with confectionaries and whatnot. But, you know, Prohibition happened. And with Prohibition and people weren't able to have their little cute fancy cocktails anymore, they wanted something else. And we had, like, the rise of alcohol-free soda fountains. And essentially, ice cream sundaes replaced the cocktail during this time. The soda jerks essentially were like the bartenders of the time, and they were mixologists, and they would create like countless concoctions, and you would have like very trendy ice cream sundaes that would pay tribute to like popular people or topics or places or politics or theater. So you might have like a a cocktail today that's like the Kardashian martini, or maybe you'd have like a drink called like the Kardashian or whatever. It was like that, but for ice cream, which honestly sounds better to me. And sundaes now, like we look back and we're like, what the hell does that mean? But it really is like a great insight into like pop culture of like this time period, because you know like what was popular, what was happening, who were people like talking about, things like that. And so for this game, I'm going to say a name of either a ice cream sundae or a nail polish shade. And Nicole will have to guess, is it an ice cream sundae or is it a nail polish shade? And I will then read the description of how to make that ice cream sundae, if it is an ice cream sundae. If not, I will send to her the picture of the nail polish so she can see what it looks like.
Okay, I'm ready. This is my Olympics.
If I remember correctly, yeah, you're usually very good at these. So all of our like recipe excerpts for these ice cream sundaes are from the Dispenser's Formulary, which is a soda fountain publication of New York from 1925. All right, round 1. Pink Fizz.
Pink Fizz. Ooh. Sounds like a fun, like, grapefruit drink. I think this is a nail polish.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
Correct.
boy.
It is a nail polish. Shall send you in chat the picture of the nail polish.
Ooh, oh, it's Hollow Taco. Wow.
Yeah, baby.
We're going high end.
I usually choose like one brand per game round. It's just easier that way. For the viewers, it is like
it's a sparkly pink
orange color.
It's giving Lisa Frank.
For sure. All right. Next question. Fruit cocktail.
Whoo. That is delightfully devilish. Because I do feel like this really could be both. And perhaps even is both. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a nail polish out there that's called fruit cocktail. But also, I mean, fruit cocktail does exist as a little snack. If you've ever had your little cup of fruit.
I had them many times, every day, at the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Postpartum, yeah.
So in this context, do I think you are talking about a nail polish or an ice cream? I think it's an ice cream.
Yay!
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding. Ice cream sundae. I shall now read the description for you. Chipped and iced fruits, commonly known as fruit cocktails, always find favor with children and may be substituted for the richer frozen creams. Shredded pineapple and ripe bananas, sliced and mixed together with pulverized sugar, may have poured over them a little lemon or orange juice and then be set in a refrigerator to ripen, time being given for the various fruit flavors to combine. When ready to serve, fill sherbet glasses with chopped ice and add a couple of spoonfuls of the shredded fruit and the juice formed around it. Charge 10 cents.
I always like that they include the prices.
I know, I think it's so cute.
Suggested MSRP 10 cents.
So I think it's cute that like this ice cream sundae is essentially like a sorbet. Round 3. Buster Brown.
I think it is an ice cream because I want to say Buster Brown, like, if this is the 1920s, I want to say Buster Brown is like some kind of popular figure at the time, whether he's a real person or not.
Damn, kid, right on the money.
Whoa!
It is an ice cream sundae, and Buster Brown is short for James Buster Brown, who was a very popular, very famous tap dancer of the era.
There we go. What is the Buster Brown? What is his signature iced cream?
Okay, the Buster Brown. Fill a punch glass with half chocolate ice cream and half pineapple sherbet, and pour over the mixture a ladleful of caramel nut sauce, or, oh gosh, I did not read this word ahead of time, catawba syrup.
Sure.
I don't know what that is. That's what, 3 for 3? Impressive. All right, next question. Banana medicine.
Ugh. I can taste this, and I don't like it. I did once have to, perhaps more than once, take a medicine that, like, I was told by the doctor, like, don't worry, it's flavored like bananas. And that made it
gross.
so much worse. Like,
That's
so
awful.
much worse. It's always hard when a medicine tastes awful because the whole point is you have to ingest it and not throw it up, because if you throw it up, then you have to do it again.
Don't work.
And it doesn't work. So it was a hard time. Okay, removing myself from that terrible experience. Banana medicine. I'm gonna say ice cream because I know that, like, again, this was often you'd get your ice cream sundae at like a pharmacy, and it was like weirdly slightly medicalized.
It is a nail polish.
Ah, dang.
It is a banana yellow nail polish.
Just
it's
flat
just
banana yellow. Yep.
That was a bit of a trick question on my part. I knew that was going to be hard. But so far we have 3 out of 4. Round 5. Dreamland Sundae.
Oh. Dreamland Sundae. Now, I know it has the word Sunday in it, but knowing that this is probably from Holo Taco, that does sound like, I think that this is nail polish.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I was so mean.
No.
No, it is, in fact, an ice cream sundae.
Wow.
The Dreamland Sundae. Into a banana special dish, lay 2 good-sized slices of a peach. In the center, place a medium-sized scoopful of vanilla ice cream. Put a spoonful of whipped cream at each side of the ice cream and cover with walnuts and a cherry. Over the vanilla ice cream, put a spoonful of crushed pineapple and top with a red and green cherry. Serve with 2 Nabisco wafers. Sells for 15 cents.
Wow. Now, what's a green cherry? Is that just like an underripe cherry?
I don't know. I think it's like, like you have your candied cherries. They probably just put like a little bit of green food coloring in there too, is my guess.
Sure.
All right, we have 3 more. You still have time to redeem yourself. Party Punch.
Party Punch. We haven't done a lot of drinks yet. Would you have put... I mean, you also could get drinks at the soda fountain. Obviously, it's right there in the freaking name. I think this is a nail polish.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right. Coming back. Ooh.
It is a lovely, sparkly red polish.
It's like almost like a cranberry, like a light cranberry color.
Like a Kool-Aid color.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like a Kool-Aid with glitter in it.
Think of like fruit punch. It is that color. All right, round 7. The penultimate question. Nip in the bud.
This one is so strangely worded that I think it's an ice cream. Oh, man. Dang.
It is a nail polish. Nip in the bud is a lovely sort of mauve pink nail polish. Honestly, this is kind of like the color I would wear. A lovely little pink. Think of like a rosebud. All right, our final question. Turkey trot.
This is not a nail polish or a sundae, but in fact something you do after Thanksgiving, and you run around and wear a little bib to raise money for something important. Turkey trot. If it was an ice cream, what would it be? I'm gonna say ice cream just because of the overall balancing effect. I think you would put one more ice cream in here. That's the only reason.
It was a trick question. The answer is both.
Whoa!
So, it's not like a nail polish color per se, but it is a set of like those stick-on nails. Has cute little turkeys on it. And also a ice cream sundae.
Wow.
So to prepare, grind together in equal proportions to make 1 pound 4 kinds of nuts, such as walnuts, pecans, almonds, and filberts, which are hazelnuts. Pour the ground nuts into a pint of thick chocolate and a pint of marshmallow whip, and mix so as to make a pudding. To serve, take a silver sundae cup. Into it, put a number 12 to the quart dipperful of vanilla ice cream. Then add the pudding, and over it put 2 red cherries on the opposite side.
Oh, so it kind of looks like a little turkey, I guess?
I think it's supposed to, yeah.
Like the cherries are supposed to be eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I would eat the heck out of this. This sounds delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, nuts, chocolate. I love it.
Thank you so much, Julia, for bringing our game back.
Thank you for being my favorite contestant.
Yay! Call me Ken Jennings over here, the returning champ and the only champ. Now that we've had our refreshing little... We've gone to the nail salon and had an ice cream treat. Let's get wiggy with it.
Let's go, girl.
Okay, so this is the portion of the episode where we talk about the women and gender and sexuality things related to our topic of the day. And as I alluded to earlier, in a Girls' Lunch classic move, we're going to be talking about sort of the women in Milton Hershey's life that made the Hershey Company possible, made it to be able to become what it is today. So let's start with, perhaps most obviously, Fanny Snavely Hershey, which is Milton's mother. Julia, if you would like to read this quote that I have from Hershey, Milton S. Hershey's extraordinary life of wealth, empire, and utopian dreams.
Hell yeah. I love me a long title. I think all books should have a stupidly long title like that.
I am literally such a slut for, like, short title that is snappy and fun, long, more explanative title. Every single time. Every single time. Mwah, 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 mwah.
Eat it up. Love it. Fanny had been raised in a prominent but insular family of conservative preachers and hard-working farmers in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Her father was a bishop of the Reformed Mennonite Church, which had broken away from the main Mennonite Church because it had gone soft on such carnal behaviors as foolish talking, voting, and entertainments like county fairs and horse races.
The line carnal behaviors such as foolish talking is
I love voting. That's so funny.
Yeah. I also want to...
How dare you?
What is foolish talking? What do we mean? Like, what is that even? I don't know.
I think it's so funny that, like, I don't know, so many of these religions and branches of religions are like, you had one guy with the tism who was like, these aren't the rules. We're not following the rules to a T.
Yep.
So I have to start my own religion.
Yep. Yeah.
Because we gotta follow the rules to a T.
Yeah. So many religions are just like, well, I like most of what we usually do, but not that. And so we're going to go play over here and you guys can't come, you know?
You can't sit with us.
No, you can't. So with that sort of context, I think that just gives a good overall sort of picture of like what is the community that Fanny grew up in and sort of like, you know, how did she raise Milton as well. So the Snaveleys, which is like her side of the family, the Snaveleys are pretty well off. They're a prominent farming family with a lot of property and land, which like translates to money. To some degree, I would argue that the idea of Milton Hershey as like a rags to riches story isn't entirely true. Because if we'll recall, like, he failed multiple times, and it's not like he failed once and there was no other, like, he was able to go back to his family, extended family, and get more money and try again, you know? Like,
yeah.
If his parents were, like, I don't know, like factory workers or something, and they didn't have the sort of, like, institutional wealth to be able to, you know, front him that, or to provide, like we said, like property for collateral or things like that. Like, would he have been able to have 6 failed business ventures? Unsure.
I was thinking about that as you were going through, like, the history of it, because I'm like, dang, his aunt supported him again and, like, again. Especially for, like, a woman of the time, you've got to be pretty set with money to be able to do that.
Yeah. Again, it's not exactly like the small loan of $1 million, but it's not that, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to, like, start and fail multiple businesses is not possible for everyone, right? Like, it would completely ruin a lot of people. I kind of talked about this earlier, but Fanny was, like, very firm with Milton. It's a core principle of Mennonite culture that, like, you need to work hard to, like, serve God. So hard work is definitely, like, built into her raising of Milton Hershey and how he grows up. But she also tries to set him up for success. So like I said, she was the one that found the apprenticeship for him in candy making at Royer's ice cream parlor because she thinks, like, this seems like something that my son would be able to, like, make a living at. She wasn't really too thrilled with him working at the newspaper shop, which I think is kind of funny.
Did she put the hat in the machine?
Oh, who knows? Emotionally, in a figurative sense, perhaps. And obviously that ends up working out, right? Milton becomes famous wealthy caramel man, then he becomes famous chocolate man. And so he's able to pay his mother and his aunt back eventually.
Yay!
He bought his mother a house in Lancaster, made sure all of her needs were taken care of, but she didn't necessarily, like, stop working. So she used to, like, come by and, like, inspect the Hershey factory.
Aww.
Because she lived directly across the street from the factory, so she would, like, come by and, like, I don't know, workers have told stories of, like, she would, like, make sure that all the doors were locked and just be, like, checking up on the place. And apparently there was somebody whose job it was, like, every day they brought over a box of Hershey's Kisses for her to wrap.
Aw, that's so cute.
They obviously didn't really sell them because it's not really sanitary for her to just be wrapping candy in her house. But she still wanted to participate and feel like, I mean, she had to be working, right? She'd be working. You know, Milton kind of humored his mother of, like, here, Mom, wrap candies just like we used to back in the day.
Oh, that's cute.
So that's Fanny Hershey. Next, we can talk about Martha Snavely, a.k.a. Aunt Mattie, which is Milton's aunt. And she's Fanny's older sister, so that side of the family. So Aunt Mattie never got married. She lived with Fanny and Milton after Fanny kicked out Henry Hershey. And she really was, like, Milton's biggest supporter, like, even more so than his mom. Because she wasn't married, you know, she didn't have a husband, she didn't have any children, she was really able to pour her time and energy and money into supporting her nephew. As we said earlier, she came to help Milton and Fanny wrap candies and help them run the business a couple of times. She picked out the storefront in Philadelphia for his first, like, independent confectionery. She loaned him money many times and even put up her house as collateral for a loan, even when the rest of the family wouldn't, you know, they were like, I don't think so. I think you're just like your dad and you're just going to, like, squander my money. I'm not going to loan you anything. So she really was, like, big cheerleader. Love her. I maintain that Hershey would not be what it is without Aunt Mattie.
No.
She passed away in April of 1894, so she did get to see some of Milton's success as a caramel maker, but she didn't really get to see the Hershey empire or even the invention of milk chocolate. So that's a little bit sad. But she did get to see him, like, have success as, like, a candy man. And so she did get to see some of his, like, some of the sort of fruits of her investment kind of pay off. And I'm sure that if she had lived even longer, he probably would have done something similar to what he did with his mom of, you know, buying her a house and making sure that she was all set. Now, finally, we're going to talk about someone we really haven't touched much on intentionally because I saved her for this half of the episode, which is Catherine Sweeney, or Kitty, who is Milton's wife.
Oh.
He did get married. I think I sort of only briefly mentioned her before. Kitty and Milton met when Milton was on a business trip in Western New York with William Murray in 1897. This is sort of the, like, company line of how they met. This is what is reported. Obviously, neither of them are alive and we can't ask them, but that's as much as we know. They met at a soda fountain appropriately, and got to talking and obviously really liked each other. This is 1897, so this is after the success of the Lancaster Caramel Company, but before he started making chocolate. So she meets him when he is like pretty well off, but he is not yet the chocolate man. So Kitty is, by all accounts, and you can look at pictures, very pretty. She's tall. She has long auburn hair that she usually wears up in that kind of Gibson girl bun. She is 14 years younger than Milton. She was 25 and he was 40 when they met. So that's quite an age gap. But I mean, you know, she's 25. She's definitely like an adult. It's not predatory in that way. Thank God.
And also, like, in 1897, that's being 25 and unwed is pushing it for the time period.
That's true. And sort of similar with Milton, right? Like, he's 40 and he had already lived many lives, basically. I think some people just sort of assumed, like, he wouldn't get married. And I think he sort of assumed that, too, but then met Kitty and just head over heels. Kitty's the daughter of Irish immigrants as well, so it's very much like from two different worlds. She's very much a lady, right? She enjoys entertaining, gardening, fashion. She's always wearing the latest fashions. They court for about a year and then decide to get married. And Milton just sort of like brings her home to Pennsylvania and everybody's like, what? Hello? Hello? Who? Her? What?
Oh, I
Hello?
bet the local papers had a field day with that, man.
Oh, they sure did. Everybody, and especially also, like, it's a pretty small town, right? Like, it's not like you're in New York City, you know? Everybody knows everybody else's business. And so the local townsfolk were very, like, confused about, like, who is this woman that, like, Mr. Hershey's now married to? And also, she's Catholic, which, like, none of us are Catholic. She's Irish, or she's the daughter of Irish immigrants. We're all, like, Pennsylvania Dutch. This is, like, so not our... They're very different.
Apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges, yes. And also with the sort of Mennonite background, you know, a large part of that culture is, like, being very plain. And she's very, like, showy, very dressed up. Like I said, loves her. She worked at a ribbon shop briefly, which is, like, just such a, like, thing you could do, you know? Like, imagine that being your job. You worked at the ribbon counter. Perhaps not surprisingly, given the sort of cultural clash here, Fanny Hershey was not wild about Kitty. Fanny felt like she's too flashy. She's also, there's like a religious difference there, right? Of like, she's Catholic. And, you know, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say there's probably some jealousy here as well, since, you know, for 40 years, Fanny has been the center of Milton's life, or the most important woman in his life, and now suddenly, well, you have this wife and you're just gonna, like, you know, start deferring all of your important decisions to her, and, like, does my opinion mean nothing to you anymore, you know?
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Fanny was a very typical boy mom.
Yeah, or the, like, very much like the mother-in-law, not from hell exactly, but they just did not quite see eye to eye. But Milton loved Kitty. Like, today, we would consider Milton Hershey a wife guy. 100%. He brought her fresh flowers every day. They traveled the world together. He really adored her. As I'll talk about in a second, she got very ill, and he was very supportive of her the whole time, even despite their, like, age gap and the sort of class disparity and the cultures that they grew up in. They really seemed like they were very much in love. And it also seems like he respected her and, like, took her ideas seriously. Not just like, oh, you're cute. And I guess that's, I mean, you know, if you wait until 40 to get married, especially at that point, it is probably to someone pretty special, right? Like...
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of David Fairchild. No one thought David Fairchild was ever going to get married. And then he just, like, met the woman of his dreams. And, like, head over heels.
Wife guy.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's just heartwarming to be
it's
like,
nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Love did exist back
then.
It
did. Not everybody, like, hated their spouse and called their wife an old lady or whatever. So, well, unfortunate to our story here, this does get a little bit sad. So Kitty, her life was unfortunately cut short by this sort of mysterious illness. She passed away in 1915 at age 42, which is quite young, after declining for several years.
No.
with all of his money and everything, Milton Hershey, they traveled everywhere. They tried all sorts of cures and treatments and things for whatever would maybe make her illness better. Especially at this point in history, we're still sort of figuring out, like, what is medicine? Opium? Perhaps going outside. It's either opium or you go to the seaside for a while, you know?
Go to the sea for your health. I would like to go to the sea for my health, personally. That sounds great.
Again, because medicine is, like, questionable at this point in history, we don't know exactly what it was that she had. And also, something I haven't really mentioned up to this point is when you have a major billion-dollar company like this, there's not a lot of competing narratives, you know? Mm-hmm. There is a company narrative. This is what happened. And that's all you're going to sort of read. We do know that whatever illness it was that Kitty had was something neurological. So she had issues with, like, balance, numbness. Eventually she became paralyzed. There was a book that I read that sort of makes the argument that, like, she had syphilis, which is interesting. And they sort of give some reasons for, like, well, I think, you know, if the symptoms are similar to syphilis, and at this point in history, it was very poorly understood. And obviously, like, with its connotations as, like, sexually transmitted infection, it would not be something you could talk about in polite company, you know. It might make Kitty look bad, or it might sort of be contrary to the image of her as this, like, society, very ladylike, you know, even though you can get syphilis that can be passed from mother to child. But I don't know. That's one theory. I'm not going to say, like, she definitely had syphilis. We don't know. All we know is that it was obviously very devastating for Milton to lose his wife at such a young age, especially after seeing her decline for so long. But something that we can credit Kitty with in the larger Hershey story is the Milton Hershey School. This was something that Milton sort of always gave her credit for, was like, oh, the school was Kitty's idea. It was something she wanted to do, even though it really was sort of like a joint effort. And something that's really interesting is all of the documents for the school, when they, like, set it up, all of the documents list Milton and Kitty.
Aww.
It's not just, like, Milton Hershey. It's called the Milton Hershey School today, but it was previously just called the Hershey Industrial School.
Gonna write a strongly worded letter to Hershey and be like, put Kitty's name back on.
Put her back in there. She has a statue.
Put her back in there.
She does have a statue there, and she's pretty well appreciated at the school, I think. But I'm with you. And something I haven't mentioned up to this point, but maybe it's probably not surprising to hear, is that perhaps because of her illness or perhaps because of other things, Milton and Kitty never had any children themselves. And so they sort of felt like the school was the way for them to, like, have quote unquote children. Like, they set up the school so that these orphan children who didn't have parents, who didn't have good home lives, could be taken care of. And, you know, there are lots of accounts of, like, Milton especially would come to the school a lot and check on the boys, and Kitty would do the same thing. I think she went there for breakfast every day and, like, checked on the students and made sure they're doing their homework and all that type of stuff. Aww. So they sort of, like, got to be parents without being, you know.
Got to fill that void a little bit.
Yeah. If you enjoyed learning about Milton and Kitty, good news. This is a thing that I just learned, like, 3 days ago. There is currently a big Hollywood movie that is being filmed that is supposed to come out later this year, starring Finn Wittrock as Milton, and Alexandra Daddario is playing Kitty. That's going to cover sort of this time period that we talked about today. So, you know, as Hershey is starting to build his chocolate company, and it's supposed to be about their relationship. And so if you liked hearing about this, you can go see it in the theater.
And we should do a girls' watch.
Oh, that would be fun.
Would be fun.
Add it to our, like, movie night, book club list, you know?
Yeah.
In conclusion, as I've said many times, and will continue to say, because it's my podcast and no one can tell me to shut up.
We can do what we want.
I can do what I want. Hershey would not be what it is today without these strong women in Milton's life that supported him and his many business ideas and ventures. His mother instilled a strong work ethic in him and gave him financial support, set him up as a confectioner with his apprenticeship. His Aunt Maddie gave him the capital he needed even after his previous business ventures failed multiple times.
Multiple times.
His wife Kitty gave him the emotional support and a reason to take breaks from the business and enjoy other parts of life, which is important if you are running a gigantic corporation to, you don't want to get burned out as a multimillionaire.
I don't know. I'm sure she also, or had a big role in sort of adding to, the humanity of Hershey's company as a whole.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, you were talking about, the town and its setup, and I'm like, I can see Kitty being like, no, the houses can't be cookie cutter.
Yeah, I do know that she was a big player in the gardens. So, there's the Hershey Gardens that you can go to nowadays that are beautiful and expansive, and she was a gardener, so those were her sort of pride and joy. So definitely she contributed to the cultural life of the town of Hershey as well. So that is where we're going to stop for today. In our next episode, we're going to talk about all of the world wars, World War I and its sequel, World War II, Milton's legacy and his passing, and the Hershey Company today.
Oh boy, I bet that's going to get saucy.
It's going to get saucy, and we're going to talk about, no spoilers, but some wacky marketing, which we love.
Another box to fill in on the girls' lunch bingo board.
Yeah, buddy.
Is there a weird commercial? Check that box.
All right, well, for now, thanks for lunching with us.
And
we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Our theme music is Red Onions by Louis Zong. Please check out the rest of his album Vegetable Soul in the description. If you have an episode suggestion or want to say hi, you can email us at girlslunchpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
Hold on, I've got it. It's in my brain somewhere. I can use it. I can use my postpartum brain for thoughts.